Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining this session, and thanks to Chris and everyone at the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable for inviting me to join this session. Again, my name is Steph Bertaina, and I'm with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Office of Community Revitalization. And today we'd like to talk a little bit about what sustainable development looks like for rural communities and how it fits into the broader scope of this conference, and specifically the Recreation Economy for Rural Communities program, which I've been running for the last couple of years. So I'm going to just dive right in. So the Recreation Economy for Rural Communities program is a planning assistance program that EPA, my agency, as well as the USDA Forest Service and also the Northern Border Regional Commission have been partnering together over the last year and a half or so to provide planning assistance to small towns and rural communities across the country who are working to leverage outdoor recreation to revitalize their main streets and to diversify their economies. We've been partnering with 10 communities in the pilot round of this program, and you see the map here on this slide of the communities with whom we've been partnering. And we've been working with them to help them create action plans around what they want to see around outdoor recreation in their communities. We bring federal and state partners to the table, as well as other potential funding partners, to listen to the community's vision and to help partner with them with implementation. Among those partners are state offices of outdoor recreation, who've been great partners. Of course, ORR has been a great partner in providing some implementation grants to 5 of our community partners from this last round. And you'll see some pictures from some of our community workshops. You see some pictures from Jasper, Alabama, which was our first workshop and the only one we were able to do in person before COVID sort of switched us to a virtual format. And so you see Cambridge, New York with another one of our communities there. So what is the Recreation Economy for Rural Communities program all about? Again, we are really partnering with communities to help them revitalize their main streets, to strengthen economic opportunities for residents and businesses, and to really get people outdoors, really recognizing that that's such a key part of the sustainable use of the natural resources, which so many rural communities and small towns are blessed with. And we know this improves people's health and gets people outside, really the topic of the day for this conference. So again, this program is jointly supported and funded by the USDA Forest Service, as well as the Northern Border Regional Commission, and my agency, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And the 3 of our federal agencies have come together to support this program in partnership with lots of other federal agencies as well. So we've worked with USDA Rural Development, Economic Development Administration, Appalachian Regional Commission, and others, as well as state and regional partners as well. And we've worked hand in hand with all of these 10 community partners through this pilot round with local steering committees who are made up of community members from each place in which we've been working. Local government, businesses, nonprofits, anyone who has a stake in the outdoor recreation economy, as well as downtown revitalization efforts. So what do I mean when I talk about planning assistance? What does that even really mean? It's really not a direct grant to a community, but rather access to a team of experts, a team of consultants and federal staff who work hand in hand with the community to go through the planning process that you see here. We work with the local communities to kind of assess where they are around outdoor recreation and Main Street revitalization, to understand what they want to accomplish with this planning assistance process, to understand their vision and their goals. We then convene the community together with a workshop, typically in person, and in the case of this last year or so, virtually, to have a workshop over several days where we walk through the community through what they want to see happen in their community, what they want to do in terms of immediate next steps to really make some changes to their outdoor recreation economy, to their downtown, et cetera. So we convene for our workshop, and then through the process of that workshop, the community writes their action plan, which really has kind of their marching orders for what they want to see in their community in the coming 6 months or 2 years. So it's what I like to call kind of a catalytic plan, really oriented toward what are those next immediate steps that you need to make. As I mentioned earlier, one of the parts of this process that's really special is bringing federal agencies to the table, state agencies, other funding partners who can listen to the community's vision and then help partner with them to make it a reality, bringing the resources to the table that the community needs. So here are just a few pictures of some of our partner communities from this last round. We worked with places like Giles County, Virginia, where we worked with multiple towns in the community to really help them think about kind of a regional branding approach to how to really tap into the growing visitation coming to visit Giles County's many natural assets. We worked with Glenwood Springs, Colorado to help them think through how they're going to bounce back stronger, not only from COVID, but from also wildfires and other shocks to their region, as well as to engage the growing Latinx population in their community. We worked with Cambridge, New York to help them leverage a newly purchased community forest, which is adjacent to their downtown, to better connect it to the downtown and to tie it into other neighboring natural assets. And Thompson Falls, Montana is another one of our community partners, a beautiful town and a beautiful setting. And we worked with Thompson Falls to help get Thompson Falls on the map, to think about what are ways to increase visitation, know where their visitors are coming from, better serve them, and better connect them to the beautiful resources that are there. So I thought I'd just very quickly give a snapshot of one or two of our communities, and then we'll leave the rest of the time for discussion. Jasper, Alabama was our first workshop. It was a year ago, March. So I wanted to share a little bit about Jasper as an example of a community that's doing this type of work. Jasper is the county seat of Walker County and about 45 minutes or so from Birmingham in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Jasper's economy is currently in transition, like so many communities, from a more timber and coal dominated economy to one that they see outdoor recreation as being a part of. We worked with the Jasper Main Street organization and Walker County Health Action Partnership as our main leads for this project. And of course, Jasper has, like so many rural places, tremendous assets, including the Bankhead National Forest, tremendous hiking and biking and hunting and fishing. They have blueways, they have a county lake that's nearby town as well that the town has incorporated into its boundaries. So tremendous resources and tremendous potential. We were able to gather in Jasper in person before COVID changed the dynamic. So you'll see some pictures from our workshop here. Really well-attended workshop. The community really turned out. Federal and state partners turned out as well. You can see some of Jasper's workshop goals here. You know, everything from wanting to grow a culture of outdoor recreation and health in their community, to physically connecting the outdoor recreation resources that exist but might not easily be able to be accessed, to expand outdoor recreation businesses and activities to really boost economic development potential, and to become better and lasting stewards of natural and outdoor recreation resources in their community. So since the workshop, since about a year ago, March, Jasper has been hard at work implementing their plan that was developed through this process. They've developed an MOU between the state and the city to expand and maintain trails around Walker County Lake. They've hosted local TV segments featuring what's available in Jasper to the greater Birmingham region. They've incorporated parts of the action plan, the Recreation Economy for Rural Communities action plan that we left them with, into the city's comprehensive plan to boost opportunities for the community to become a trail town. They have an ongoing Slow Spokes weekly community bike program that was boosted in terms of its participation. They're now routinely seeing 80 plus people participate in those weekly bike rides. Of course, Jasper is one of our community partners who was fortunate to receive an Outdoor Recreation Roundtable grant to support trail design, marketing, branding, and support for a new multi-use trail in their community. And like so many places we've heard today already, they're seeing such greater use and more diverse use of outdoor recreation assets in their community. So they're tackling how do we embrace and enhance use of our resources and really do so in a way that's going to serve the best number of people in the community. So that's Jasper. I'll briefly talk about Poultney and then turn to some discussion questions. Poultney was our final community through this pilot round. We just had our workshop with Poultney in February, another really amazing community, small town in southwestern Vermont. They experienced the economic shock of the closure of Green Mountain College, which was on their main street. So the small town experienced that economic shock and was thinking about what's next for their community and what role can outdoor recreation play in boosting the economy of the region and really tapping into the amazing assets that they have. This community has tons of trails, mountain biking trails, bicycling trails, hiking, walking trails. They have a state park nearby. The town was the lead for this project, and in so many ways, they were sort of the poster child for this program that's really seeing how to use outdoor recreation to boost economic activity, particularly in communities that have been hard hit with a various crisis or just economic decline over decades. So we worked with Poultney on a workshop. This is one of our virtual ones. So you'll see a snapshot from one of our Zooms. And here are the workshop goals that Poultney really was hoping to accomplish. They wanted to see physical connections in their community to better connect the downtown with their recreation assets. They wanted to focus on building downtown amenities and business development opportunities for entrepreneurs who wanted to get a start in the community and to better serve visitors who are coming. They had a really strong focus on youth engagement, senior engagement, and just broader community engagement, building more people into the mix who can benefit from the many amenities that Poultney has to offer. And they're also thinking about branding. How can they develop Poultney as a recreation hub for the region? And how can they change it from just being part of the lifestyle, which it's always been, but also seen as an economic driver that really can support economic development opportunities broadly. Poultney's also been hard at work. They recently received a state Better Connections grant to create a master plan to implement some of the ideas that have come out of the recreation economy for rural communities action plan. They're updating their comprehensive plan as well, and our work plan will help shape that. And they have plans on the horizon for wayfinding, interpretation along their trails, and art installations. So stay tuned for Poultney's success. I would say just really briefly, what have we learned from this pilot round so far and working with these 10 communities? I would say this approach works and is needed. We had 170 communities apply for this program, and we're only able to select 10. Communities, small towns and rural places across the country are demanding planning assistance and also implementation to support to make their plans a reality. Partner engagement is really important. Having the funding partners at the table really helps the matchmaking happen so that communities can implement their plans, with things like the ORR grants as one example of a really easy way to sort of catalyze some immediate successes. I would just mention too that we're in planning stages for our next round. So I listed our website here. Please stay tuned for that. And I know we're short on time, so I did want to just tee up some discussion questions and turn it back over to Chris. I'd love to hear from all of you, what work you're doing in your communities, how does this resonate? Any questions that you might have, happy to open it up to discussion now.
Thank you, Steph, and thank you also for that showcase of both Poultney and Jasper. It's a great capture of the diversity of rural communities around the United States and the importance of the recreation economy for rural communities program, which I think is one of the coolest initiatives coming out of the federal government right now. If you missed the first couple minutes of this session because of overlap from the first, one thing that's been very cool for me and ORR is that Steph was actually an amazing partner in the process of developing our own outdoor recreation economy toolkit, which I've just put in the chat. And I just want to underscore a stat that she shared at the end of her presentation that is so indicative of the demand for this work. They had enough funding for 10 communities for technical assistance, and 170 communities applied. All around the United States, communities that are looking for more stable, resilient, and restorative economies are looking towards outdoor recreation. A couple things stood out to me in the process of developing this toolkit, and I'm hoping you can comment on them, Steph. One is the fact that rural America is not a monolith. Rural communities are quite unique in their geography and demographics and politics and race and ethnicity and all these sorts of things that make communities what they are. And the second is that this is not work that one person or one group of people can take on. It really takes these cross-sector collaboratives of stakeholders from all around the community to get this work off the ground. Can you talk about building these collaboratives in communities and how folks on this call might get started in building this process from the ground up?
Great questions. And I would just say, one thing that I've seen in my 12 plus years of working at EPA and getting to work not only with this program, but other programs in small towns and rural places across the country is just that, when you've seen one rural community, you've seen one rural community. I like to steal that quote. I'm not sure who to attribute it to, but I heard it many years ago and it's resonated with my experience. Every place is different. And I think the most successful approach is one that's really grounded in the community's context and is led by the community. It's really important, especially as a federal agency, that we are just the catalysts and we are supporters. The communities are the lead. These are their workshops and their processes, and we're merely there to bring the partners to the table, to listen to their infectious vision of what they want to see in their community and to matchmake between the resources. So I would just kind of say that to start, that it's really best when the community is at the helm. That said, we learned over the years that a really robust part of this process is when you have a really diverse group of people within the community who are at the lead, here. So we've developed, like I mentioned, this local steering committees that we work with in each community. We definitely developed some best practices over the years in terms of helping communities think about who's not been at the table and who needs to be at the table. So a big part of our process is just asking good questions and saying, okay, who's the lead right now in outdoor recreation or downtown revitalization strategies, and who is missing, and trying to make those forays into, really developing a very cross-sector conversation from the beginning, and that was something that came up with, for example, in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. They knew they had this growing Latinx population in their community, and they wanted to see more participation, more leadership, more empowerment of that community within their city. And so we worked with them to identify some great organizations like Wilderness Workshop. We were able to add some folks to the steering committee who really represented voices that hadn't been heard before. And it was incredibly eye-opening and empowering to make that happen. So yeah, we've learned a lot along the way. And I think the more diverse a steering committee is, the better the outcome will be.
And such a great response, Steph. Thank you for that. If you do have questions to add on to this conversation, please feel free to put them in the chat. I wanted to highlight another thing that came out of the building diverse cross-sector collaboratives conversation that you and I had, which is the importance of having public sector partners at the table, in particular because of the challenge of attaining funding, whether it's in the form of grants or technical assistance from local, state, or federal governments. And to put an anecdote to illustrate this, there might be tons of folks within a community that are excited about the potential for developing an outdoor rec economy, but they also might have a family to care for, a business to run, a ranch to manage. And these are also the folks who are going to be, writing grants, trying to achieve technical assistance. And by having public sector partners at the table, it can help work through the process of understanding which sorts of grants and technical assistance might be best suited for a community in a specific place or stage in its development. Because there are so many, and the grant writing process can be quite challenging, having folks who understand all that's out there provided by the federal government can be incredibly useful. I wonder if you have any comments on that, Steph.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say again, I come from a small town, and I have just such great joy in working with small towns and rural communities. I think because of that, and also because I have such an appreciation for many hats that people in rural communities really wear. I heard one time someone referred to it as the STPs, the same 10 people who do everything, and that's also true in my experience. You see these community spark plugs who are making things happen, and when you can empower them, it's so powerful, but they also are tired sometimes, and especially this last year. So I think the power of bringing new people into the conversation is really, really important. And I think a lot of our community partners through this program have seen that and have used this planning assistance process as a way to draw new people into the fold, to bring new entrepreneurs to the table, to hear what they want to accomplish, and to sort of help them make it a reality. But certainly having the public sector involved is really key. We oftentimes will work with the town or the city government. Regional planning organizations are really key, county governments. In fact, some of our projects, like the one in Giles County, Virginia, that I mentioned, had kind of multiple levels of government involved, both the local town level, the county level, and a regional planning commission. And in some ways, that's kind of the best, because you have all of this coordination that's happening across levels of government as well. So the public sector can play a key role. We also recognize that everyone has really limited time, and especially federal grant processes can be really daunting. So the application for this program is a 2-page letter of interest. We've tried to reduce all those barriers, but we know that that's not true for every federal program that's out there that might want to fund some projects that would come out of a process like this. So that's where developing the relationships with federal agency staff or state agency staff who know those programs well and can work with the community partners as they're seeking to find those resources in the future is really helpful.
Steph, I think your point there on public-public partnerships is an incredibly good one. Oftentimes in the public sector, with scarce resources, folks can be really strained and have to work within their bubble, but there's so much opportunity and potential from expanding, whether it's state with local, state with federal, or some combination of other agencies that can really expand the potential of this work. Lee actually has a couple great questions in the chat. One is about the future of the work program, if the next round is anticipated to be 10 communities again, and then also the crossover between work and other USDA rural development, recreation economy opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. And I will give a shout out to USDA Rural Development. I think we have rural development staff at each of our 10 workshops, and I've worked with rural development folks for years and years, and they're just such a great partner within the federal family to serve rural communities. So rural development was very much involved in all of our 10 pilot communities, and we've been coordinating and in touch with a lot of our rural development colleagues who are really focused on the recreation economy. I mean, so many federal partners, other partners are recognizing the important role that it's playing in the economy, and especially in the economy of small towns. So I think there are just tons of opportunities out there to even better collaborate, but definitely have appreciated their partnership. And we're still working out the details for our next round of work. We do plan to have a second round. We anticipate that there's always going to be more demand than we have an ability to meet. So, you know, one of the things that I love to think about is what are ways that we can scale up this work even beyond our program. So we're always open to conversations with partners about ways that we can continue to serve more communities than we have in the past. We've really benefited from this pilot round and, you know, learning alongside of our partner communities. It's been such a humbling and just a great learning opportunity for me, who's somewhat new to the outdoor recreation space, even though I've worked in rural development, community development issues for a long time. So we have a lot to offer, and I think we just need to think about what are the best ways, what are the tools that are needed, what are the ways that we can share what we've learned with other communities who want to do this kind of work. So that's definitely an open question and opportunity for the future.
Thanks, Steph. But Sean, would you mind asking your question live if you're comfortable?
Sure, thanks for the opportunity. Sean Seville, Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. Thanks for the presentation, appreciate that. So just, you know, I don't see much in the way here of mentions of wildlife associated recreation and opportunities and all the sort of industry sectors that rely very heavily on those wildlife associated recreation opportunities incorporated into this program. So I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on how that may or may not have been incorporated into this, because I just don't see it represented here. So I was just curious.
Yeah, absolutely, good question. And I would say many of our communities have, you know, recreation opportunities that I think tie into that. And I may just not have highlighted them or given you a great example of that. But certainly, I think, you know, one thing that we kind of asked ourselves at the beginning is what is outdoor recreation? Like, what counts? You know, being kind of new to this field, you know, and our team basically took the tack of when we work with each community, we kind of ask them, you know, like what does outdoor recreation mean to you? It's actually one of our exercises that we do through our workshops, is sort of having that be a very community driven process. And it does sound different depending on which community you're in. And I think broadening that definition and helping communities become aware of even what they might not know they have is really part of the process too, which is why it's been great to have different state agencies, different partners who, you know, the community might not have been aware of brought to the table, because they also may have information about resources that are out there, or, you know, really key pieces of information, data, just information. So we're always open to thinking about new partners and, you know, what are the things that we might be missing that we could help bring to the table for our community partners. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Sure, thanks. I mean, you know, certainly given the importance to rural economies specifically of those wildlife associated recreation opportunities, you know, it seems like a good opportunity to partner perhaps more heavily with some of the state agencies that focus on those.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Steph, I think we have just a few more minutes here, and I do want to just expand Sean's question into a bigger conversation about the role of the private sector here. And I think about two things. One is that the private sector has its own ESG initiatives that might lend toward grants or technical assistance to support these sort of communities. The other is actually where businesses choose to put down their roots and operate and actually enrich an economy from within. Any quick thoughts on how the private sector can play a role in some of these efforts?
Well, those are great questions. And I think just so many opportunities, I think, to build on that. I mean, I would say, you're just hearing some of the presentations earlier today, investing in this type of planning assistance in partnership with rural communities could be a great role that perhaps the private sector could play more often. I heard a lot of mention of just, community engagement strategies, and, companies know that the communities in which they're situated, they benefit if those communities are walkable, livable, thriving economically places to be. So I heard so many echoes of that in the presentations that we heard. So I think there's just tons of potential. I'd love to just have that conversation more, and to brainstorm ways that we could potentially work together. And certainly we've seen through our office's work broadly, the Office of Community Revitalization, that businesses want to locate in places that are their employees want to live. And we've seen just such growth and the interest in rural communities and small towns because of that, because of the tremendous quality of life potential. And in so many places, as you also reinvest in your Main Street, that makes it a place that really people want to be, and people will be. So I think there's also a tremendous opportunity there. So the private sector plays a really key role, and we had definitely many private sector partners at the table at our workshops as well. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue to grow that.
Yeah, huge trends right now in this COVID or post-COVID economy of workers taking advantage of hybrid work models or remote work models that put them closer to outdoor recreation amenities and that quality of life. And another sort of interesting, I think, thread that came up in a lot of the interviews for the toolkit is that there's a big advantage, particularly to outdoor recreation companies, to locate in rural communities, to develop sort of a sense of authenticity around their brand and have a testing ground for some of their new gear and apparel and products. So I think amazing opportunities for the private sector to be involved here.